Thanks, Brad.
Thank you for having us.
Of course.
And thank you for sharing your work.
My name is Nanabo Kamukhelo Munukwani Diteko, but I'm better known as Monox. Monox is a visual artist who kind of plays with different mediums to tell stories. My mediums are typically photography, writing, and then I kind of start to build worlds through art direction or creative direction, set builds, and then eventually like painting, fine art, and creating experiences and events. So that's pretty much what Monox does.
So for me, it's really important to be like intentional with like how the thing feels, and oil has also taught me to come back to it, because usually with acrylic it dries up. So because oil doesn't dry that quick, you can almost come back and add new elements.
So the Villain Mode Open Studio is pretty much a showcase of my process. The pieces are still in a refinement process. So it's kind of an open studio because I'm inviting my audience to be in on the story before I almost complete it. And yeah, they can contribute to the story through the conversation. So the open studio falls on June 16, which in South Africa is Youth Day, but it's also within Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm kind of using those 2 dates as a platform to open a conversation about both the message in the art, but also like a broader conversation, which is already taking place on the day. Yeah, so Villain Mode is essentially being able to recognize what makes me as a person perform. So, you know, we kind of grow up in a world or in an environment where your identity is prescribed. So as like the oldest kid in my family, I kind of take on the qualities of somebody who has to be responsible, someone who people have to look up to, someone who, you know, who's got their own. So I'm basically questioning that, you know, like if I had to do something that I want to do, or if I had to be a little bit selfish, if I didn't have to worry about how people think of me or perceive me, what would my actions be? So in Villain Mode, it's more like a stepping into a character that doesn't necessarily consider too much what people are thinking and saying about Monox, let's say for instance as an artist, and more about having like a selfish exploration of myself and portraying it through art, and you know, really questioning things around mental health, masculinity, all the things that I always feel like confine my identity, in an attempt to develop a more progressive identity as well, because, you know, I think the idea is also to like update your iOS and kind of use the new and current information to construct your identity, as opposed to relying on prescribed ways of like being an artist or being a man or anything like that. It becomes important for Monox and Villain Mode to tie in the conversation of mental health, because I feel like I'm in a position where I could use my platform to have conversations around, where we at. In general, or I think in my opinion, in order to be able to engage with your audience and have an authentic bond, you probably have to have touch points. And I think mental health is a good touch point because a lot of my work does kind of feel a little cerebral. So I probably would resonate with people who kind of live in their head or like live in their emotions, just being an artist. So creating a space where we can feel safe about what that experience is like becomes my way of like also really deeply connecting with my audience. And yeah, it's also like I'm always open to people contributing to my ideas. So in having other people's perspectives or people's views on their own experience with mental health, it kind of can contribute to my own ideas, and I can like kind of shape my mind around how people are also experiencing it, maybe even be a little bit more empathetic. And in creating these spaces, it's also that like it's a tangible thing, like knowing that you're not the only one, and you can have an artwork or something that reminds you to kind of like relax or to lock in, yeah, it depends, yeah.
Okay, cool. So the first part of villain mode, this is like the boxer, kind of like, I'd say ducking the shots, I think the exaggeration in the muscles really speak to the exterior that we put off that we're okay.
So my ideas usually start in conversation. I have, quite a dope community of people who are like free thinkers. Some of them are like super analytical. Some of them are super religious. Some of them are, you know what I mean? So I've got like, some of them are artists, some of them aren't artists. So in engaging with all the different people, I'm always inspired to tell a different story. And then I'm also like an avid journaler, like I write a lot. And I know that like once my thoughts turn into something I journal, that's where it's likely to grow and develop into something bigger. And once I journal it, I think in processing the idea, I almost explore what the best medium would be to express that idea. Usually it starts off with photography because it's kind of like the simplest way to capture everything. If I'm curating the lighting, if I'm curating the space, I can almost find random objects that can represent different things and like throw it all into a photo. And then when I expand it, I usually look for like the deeper meaning in certain elements of the artwork, and then find a motif and then kind of expand the motif. So like for instance with villain mode, the biggest thing within the artwork outside of the striking red is probably the inflated hand glove, which kind of like looks like a balloon, and that way I test how good the motif is if I'm putting it within different situations. The meaning of that thing, the meaning of the balloon changes. So that's kind of like where I like to go. I like to take the one thing and stretch it as far as I can. And then usually the exhibition is a reflection on all the different spaces that I've been with this idea, from the photo to the, the mock-up, and then the painting, and then the event in itself somehow finds its way to be an art piece because of the footage and the people being able to engage. In certain instances, I create merch so people can also take a part of the story home. So yeah, that's pretty much the process I follow in putting together an idea. Josie has shaped my artistic voice in a super crazy way. We live in a very vibrant and textured environment. We live in we're a calabash of culture, so I started up in like skate culture, really being on the street, bombing walls, that kind of stuff. And that in itself was all the exposure I got into the spaces I'd be working into. So taking skate clips, moved into being a photographer, moved into owning a studio space. Tagging walls turned into playing with paint on canvas, finally into being like a visual artist. So yeah, I think Joburg is a fly place to be because of all the different things that kind of happen. And it also creates a certain type of like person and mentality where we're all very like driven and aspirational people. And it's very inspiring to be around people who can kind of just make their dreams manifest. We see it in music. Someone who's just like dropping a beat can eventually be on tour. Photographers, artists, so we're in the space of like people moving like that. And yeah, I guess where it all settles is at the clubhouse for me. I've been running like clubhouse with my friends and partners for like 4 years now, and it's intended to be a safe space where if you have ideas, and as young as your ideas can be, you almost have a space to develop and hone your ideas. The space in itself has got like an art studio, music studio, photography studio, and like exhibition space. And those are all the major kind of industries that you would run into as far as like creativity. So yeah, a lot of people kind of engage with the space and leave us inspired, but it's also a platform for us to grow and be engaged with the community. And yeah, I think it becomes important to have that hub. For me, growing up, that hub was Brom. And so for people now, some people, that hub could be Greenside and Clubhouse. There are also other creative houses and creative hubs in different parts. So we're all in like that wave and trend of creating space for our like creative ideas and fostering them to grow and develop, especially to be sustainable. Being able to like have a career in the thing that you love, being able to being recognized for what you do, and having a space to showcase those ideas. Success for this event would probably be engaging with the right people, and maybe an acknowledgement of how much work goes into being able to showcase something like this, because usually it's like months in the making. So I guess success would be for it to kind of reach all the people it needs to reach, hopefully inspire, and have a little bit of impact. I also think that success would be a level of brand love, and kind of showing my existing audience that like I'm still about it. And then also just being open to new people learning about me, because I'm also trying new ways to kind of showcase all my different skills and the way I think. So it would be really dope to kind of capture a new audience in that. And more than anything, have a good time, I think the biggest thing is really being in a celebratory type of energy. And celebrate the hard work, celebrate the process, and finally close it with like an event that's like super fly, having dope people come through. I I don't know what the next chapter for Monox is. I mean, this is. I think villain mode is the first chapter out of I am. I did I am for quite a while, so villain mode would be like the first time I'm not really tagging I to the concept. So I guess the next chapter would be, I don't know, man. It might be travel. It might be like super scenic things. It might be, exploring a version of myself that might not even be necessarily related to identity. It could be super abstract. I think it's just very important to break away from the things that I've been doing and try like explore new things. So I'm not really sure what will come after villain mode, but I hope that it's like something that's like really refreshing and super different. Shout out to 100 Conversations for holding space for artists that are trying to take a stride. Moments like these interviews are really affirming, knowing that you're gonna reach a new audience, but also that like there are people and organizations that really care for artists. It's very excited to see how this platform grows. Very excited to see everything that comes from it. Bless up.